Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report After Show. I'm your After Show host, After Private Investigator Ed Opperman. And the show's, of course, brought to you by Audible.com. Go to audibletrial.com/Opperman Report. Sign up, get yourself a free audiobook, okay? We're live on cjmarsradio.com and 365 Live. Of course, you can find the archives up on Spreaker.com, on iHeartRadio.com, and on YouTube.com on the Opperman Report YouTube channel. We're here tonight with Gary Stewart. Fascinating guy, fascinating life. And his co-author, Susan Mustafa. And they're the author of the book, The Most Dangerous Animal of All, Searching for My Father and Finding the Zodiac Killer. Really incredible stuff. We left off a couple of things I want to touch on, and we'll take it any way you guys want. And I hope Susan will chime in a little bit more. Don't be shy. Okay, now it's time to relax. Okay.
Okay.
Couple of things. One is the fans of true crime and social media and their theories on this, and how they get so irate about any kind of disagreement. And also, too, I want to get into the stuff about why Gary also, too, is a suspect as a serial killer. I want to talk about some of Susan's other books. And I want to also ask, Gary was just talking about a charity event. He's doing a benefit coming up to help little kids get dental work. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's in Columbia, Missouri, on November 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, I believe. Anyway, that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And it's called the King's Daughters benefit. And it's like a festival where they have booths and vendors come in, sell their wares, and everything goes to help pay for these dentists to do work on underprivileged children's teeth. And they're an awesome group, and I happen to be friends of one of the board members who lives here in Baton Rouge. But they're originally from Columbia, Missouri, so they asked me to come and participate in that, and so I'll get to do a couple radio interviews there in Columbia, and then there'll be a silent auction. There's going to be a little reception where I'll do a slideshow and a presentation, and then we'll do a booth at the exhibit, and then we'll have a book signing that I think Barnes & Noble at the University of Columbia is going to pick up there for us. So I'm really looking forward to that event.
Okay, is there a phone number and an address or something you can get people to?
It's called King's Daughters Charity. King. Just I can shoot that to you. I'll shoot that link to you on the Facebook page, so you can have it, because I've got it on my Facebook page.
Okay, and we'll put the link up and the phone number, the address, all that stuff. It'll be up on the Opperman Report blog, so you can go there and find that. You can go meet Gary in person and see what's going on there. We got a question from the chat room, so we might as well get to it. It's for Susan. The question is, does Susan know that the 81 stab wounds of Charlotte Murray Pace might connect to Aleister Crowley's Moonchild, Liber 81, the butterfly net?
I've never made that connection. I don't think Derek Todd Lee made that connection, because he wasn't the type of person who was very intelligent or who paid much attention. I think that the 81 stab wounds on Charlotte Murray Pace were a result of Derek Todd Lee's rage and the fact that she fought him from one end of her house to the other, and that's what it took for him to take her from this earth.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So now what about there were two things I want to talk. Oh yeah. Let's hear the story about how come you were swabbed as a suspect in a serial killing.
Yeah. So when at the time we didn't know in 2000, I guess 2002, right, Susan? 2002, 2003, when Derek Todd Lee and Sean Vincent Gillis were operating right here in Baton Rouge together at the same time.
Yes, in 2002, they connected the deaths of Charlotte Murray Pace, Gina Wilson Green, and Pam Kennemore through DNA to one killer. And witnesses at several of their neighborhoods that they lived in said that they saw a white man in a white pickup truck in the vicinity at the time of the murders. So police released that information to the public, and all of a sudden, white men in white pickup trucks were the main suspects. The problem is there were so many white men in white pickup trucks in the Baton Rouge area that the police ended up swabbing about 2,500 men, some of them stopping them in their trucks on the side of the road and swabbing them for DNA right then. Gary happened to have a white truck, and he was a white man.
Oh, gotcha. And so how many people did they swab? 2,500?
Yes.
So, Gary, you were clear to that? Gary?
Yes.
You were
Sorry,
clear?
I was looking for that site, that King's Doctor site.
But Gary, you were clear to those charges, right?
Well, let me tell you how they do this. So this is new to me, right? I mean, the worst I ever gotten was a speeding ticket. And to have the guy from the FBI show up at my house and knock on the door and says someone has given us a tip, and so we're asking for you to voluntarily submit your DNA for the Baton Rouge serial killer case. Man, my heart was pounding like, are you kidding me? Your mind starts thinking, okay, I've heard of sleepwalking. I mean, but this was before Ambien. I certainly, man, what am I dreaming this? And so the guy swabs me, and I said, so how will I know? You know, when I'm in the clear? He said, well, we got such a backlog now. It's gonna probably be 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month. He said, put it this way: if you hear the helicopters and the SWAT team on top of your roof, you'll know you're guilty, and we're coming to get you. And nobody ever called and said, don't worry, didn't match, or you know, I mean, I'm thinking, I don't know the science, right? What if they make a mistake? And just like I was telling you earlier, my son at 11 years old should not know what a serial killer is, but his best friend's mother was killed by Derek Todd Lee.
Oh no, okay.
So he knew. So all this stuff's hitting close to home, and I'm having these moments, man. Could I have done this? I'm trying to think. I knew Pam, but I don't know these other. I mean, it just messes with your head. So yeah, so I didn't get a phone call, but I assumed after a month went by and I didn't hear the Black Hawk helicopters that I was not guilty. But
what if the weather helicopter was flying over one night? Then what do you do? Oh, no.
I bet. Well, maybe not. I may be one of the only guys you know, though, Ed, that have. Let me see. 1, 2, 3. They've been swabbed 4 times in a serial killer case.
Wow, really? Look at that, man. So listen, we're joined by Mike Gray. Mike, you got a question?
Oh, hi all. How you doing?
Hi.
Yeah, I have a question. Melvin Belli, was that your father talking to him with that movie in the Zodiac and that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
He was on like a news program, and supposedly the Zodiac killer called in. Was that a hoax, or was that
people? You can find information online that says that there was a guy who was making a phone call from either a prison or a mental institution.
Oh, so that was it was a hoax.
That's what's said, but I don't know. I can't say that as fact because I've tried to find the truth and getting to the truth in the Zodiac case is quite a difficult thing, man. Even something you think is easy to figure out as that, right? Yeah, he's the guy who called and said his name was Sam, and he had headaches and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think so. And
Yeah.
there are a lot of people that speculate that the Unabomber, was it Ted Kaczynski or whatever his name was?
Yes.
That he was in fact the Zodiac killer.
Yeah.
Because he was in that area.
Right.
I mean, who knows? This is just speculation.
Well, listen, the case has not been solved. It's still an open case. And here we have a guy, with really a lot of first-hand information. He's talking to the cops, So let's bring all the information out. This is not going to be the last show we ever do on Zodiac. We'll do many more, I'm sure. We've done a few before.
No. I didn't mean to challenge him.
No. I'm just saying that we got great information out here tonight. Let's get it all on the record.
Yeah, and Theodore Kaczynski, because they said that the last thing they couldn't figure out the last word, and it was a real long one. And Theodore Kaczynski's name matched that. The letters matched those last lines that they couldn't decipher in the note.
Right.
There was like 15 letters that they couldn't decipher. And supposedly if you take Theodore Kaczynski, that's how many ciphers. So there was speculation that it could have been him. I don't know,
Yeah. Yeah. And, but what I think in that case, and Susan she may know, she may remember. I think that they said, number one, the handwriting wasn't close. And I know they've done DNA comparisons with some other suspects and have exonerated other people. For example, someone thought that Dennis Rader, because he was stationed at Travis Air Force Base during the Zodiac days, he became the BTK killer.
Right.
Who was an exact
really? Yeah. Okay.
Off the Zodiac. He told everybody, I am the next Zodiac guy. Some credible person had suspicion that he was the Zodiac as well. And I was told that the SPD compared Dennis Rader's DNA and it did not match, and he was not the Zodiac either. So what I'm saying to you there is that I think that anybody who's ever been a suspect in the Zodiac case, going all the way back to Arthur Lee Allen, the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski, Lawrence Kane, who's the guy in Manson family, Bruce Davis. I believe the San Francisco his police department has likely compared DNA with all living, or at the time living, former suspects on the Zodiac case, and I don't think they've. I think they would do that.
What about William Mensker?
William Mensker.
Yeah, William Mensker. He's the guy who killed Roy Radin, and they suspected to be involved in the Son of Sam cult.
Oh yeah.
Because there's a picture of him that looks very similar to that mugshot as well. What do you think?
Well, it's amazing how many people throughout the years have either, police have suspected as the Zodiac, or someone has believed they were the Zodiac. Take Steve Hodel, who believes his father was the Black Dahlia, the lipstick murderer, and the Zodiac. There's been so many that was one of the difficulties Gary and I had, was how do you write a book and present this story in a way such that it would get published when this story has been told a million times in a million different ways, and so many suspects have come throughout the years, that how are you going to be believable? That was one of the most challenging things that we had. With regard to Ted Kaczynski, he was a different type of killer than the Zodiac. The Zodiac killings with regards to the women were stabbings and shootings, but the ones that he stabbed was very, very personal. Ted Kaczynski was a loner who stayed away from people, so I don't believe that he would fit in that Zodiac profile of how up close and personal he got with his victims.
But he was in that area at that time.
Right.
As
Yes, he
a
was.
teacher or a professor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Kaczynski has some interesting stuff in his background as well. There's more to that whole thing, I think, that meets the eye.
Hey, didn't he go to Chechnya?
Oh, really?
Wasn't he? Yeah. They're thinking he was CIA or something.
Wow.
Susan, have you heard that?
No, I hadn't heard that.
I've never heard that one either, but that's very interesting.
Yeah, he went to I don't know if it was Russia, one of those Eastern Bloc countries, and he was there for a while, and no one could figure out, like, well, why did he go there? How did he get there? And there's speculation that he was working for the government, doing something for the government.
You know what amazes me about these guys in this case. Just 2 weeks ago, I petitioned the FBI file for the unredacted. I mean, the FBI for the unredacted file on my father. The first one they sent was like 30 pages, and you can only read 3 of the pages. And they finally sent back just 2 weeks ago his file. And when you see the places that, and they're all laid out in the book, of course, that my father went and the things he did. The last redaction that they removed for me says that he contacted in 75. My father contacted the Russian embassy.
Oh, really?
This is still during the Cold War. And that he wanted to, he had clearly had enough of the United States. And he wanted them to know if he thought going to Moscow could be mutually beneficial for both the Russian embassy as well as him. And I guess that FBI report made it indicate that he was like wanting to become a spy or something.
What year was that?
74 or 75.
Okay.
And he basically said, I'm kind of fed up with the U.S. and of course if it's beneficial for me, I would like to visit Moscow. And I'm thinking, okay, my father was in New Orleans 1962, 1963. He had ties to foreign dignitaries in Yugoslavia, Australia, and now he's trying to get to Russia. And I'm thinking, who else in 1962 and 1963 was operating in New Orleans with a Russian connection?
Lee Harvey Oswald.
Oh, really? Is that what it is, Mike?
Absolutely.
Hey,
I'm just gonna put my mic on mute. Okay.
Now that's interesting, man. Especially when you get into all the stuff, the connections of the grandfather.
I would love to know.
Yeah.
I would love to know everything.
Yeah, there got to be a way to get into those files. Ah, boy.
And what's interesting about that, too, the timeline of that is that the Zodiac wrote his last letter to newspapers on July 8th of 1974. So he was clearly looking for a way to get out of the country.
Oh, that's interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I have a question.
Go ahead, man.
That movie, the Zodiac movie with Downey Jr., how accurate, in your opinion, was that movie? Or
my primary source of research, educating myself on the case, basically came from Robert Graysmith's books, and of course everything I could consume online. And I loved his books, and I think that was one of the better movies in terms of historical accuracy, and the account, the way the case went, because I do believe that's exactly the way the case went. These guys got well. It was actually Robert Graysmith that got hooked on Arthur Lee Allen, and I think, with Avery's help, they just, I believe, just like the San Francisco Police Department did with the Zodiac ciphers. They tried, they sunk their teeth into looking for a hidden message. But this other hint over there that, guys, my name and my identity is in the cipher. They didn't, they were so focused on trying to decode the secret decoder ring that they didn't worry about oh, by the way, my name's in there. I think Arthur Lee Allen, what a shame, what a shame, because they literally had their blinders on and didn't look at anybody else for years in that case. And back to your original question, I think it was a great movie. The cinematography, the technology that David Fincher used there was actually a pioneering film, first in a kind, and they recreated period San Francisco beautifully. The problem with the film was, and the reason why it tanked at the box office, is because it was 2 hours and 40 minutes long. As good as it gets. Even I get tired of watching Zodiac stuff that long. So, yeah. So, but great film. Unfortunately, it took that long to tell the story.
I like a long movie. I like to sit through it, and I like a longer movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I guess a lot of people, their attention span is, yeah. But I enjoyed the movie very much, and I would definitely recommend it as well. Yeah,
for sure.
So now, Susan, what are some of these other books you've written about? The others, mostly serial killers, then, right?
Yes. Derek Todd Lee was the South Louisiana serial killer who began terrorizing the Baton Rouge area in 2001 with the murder of Gina Wilson Green, who lived on Stanford Avenue, which is a road that leads to LSU. And she was a 41-year-old nurse, and he attacked her in her home and killed her there. What police didn't know at the time was that years before, in 1992, Connie Lynn Warner, a woman in Zachary, Louisiana, which is about 20 miles north of Baton Rouge, was also killed in her home, and her body was left near the Capitol building, actually, in downtown Baton Rouge. The next year, 2 teenagers were hacked with an axe in a car in a cemetery on a rainy night. And then in 98, a woman named Randy Meebrewer disappeared from her home in Zachary, and her body has never been found. However, there was blood evidence and other bodily fluid evidence that was left at the scene that later connected Derek Todd Lee to that murder. In 2001, when he began killing inside the Baton Rouge area, he began terrorizing the people of Baton Rouge because the women that he killed were beautiful, ambitious, talented women who were going places in their lives, some of them LSU students. And he focused on that area. In 1998, Eugenie Wafontaine disappeared while she was jogging around the LSU lakes, and her body was later found near Alligator Bayou. Police at the time had no idea what they were dealing with, but there were 2 detectives. One, Danny Mixon, who was with with the Louisiana Attorney General's office, and David McDavid with the Zachary Police Department, who suspected Derek Todd Lee of the murders there. And when Gina Wilson Green was killed in her home, they brought Derek Todd Lee's file to the Baton Rouge Police Department and said, look, here's your killer. And the Baton Rouge police looked at that file, saw that Derek Todd Lee was an African American, and said, no, our killer's white, and closed the file. Since that time, Charlotte Murray Pace was killed in her home. Pam Kennemore was killed in her home. Tranisha Dene Colomb was taken from a cemetery in Grand Coteau, Louisiana, where she was visiting her mother who had died 6 months earlier. And she was taken to Scott, Louisiana, about 20 miles away from Grand Coteau, and she was brutally beaten and killed. Carrie Lynn Yoder, another LSU student who lived right outside the South Gates to LSU, was taken from her home and brutally beaten, raped, and strangled and thrown into Whiskey Bay, which is an area near the Atchafalaya Basin. Pam Kennemore's body was also found there. So as these women were being killed inside their homes, the residents of Baton Rouge were just terrified for their safety, because now your home was no longer safe. At the same time, Sean Vincent Gillis, and from 1994 to 2004, Sean Gillis killed 8 women in the Baton Rouge area. So police had their hands full because they had Derek Todd Lee, who was killing all these beautiful women, and then they had Sean Gillis, who was killing mostly prostitutes, but he also killed Ann Bryant, who was an elderly woman who lived in an assisted living home, and Hardy Schmidt, who was a suburban housewife jogging through her neighborhood. Sean Gillis was arrested shortly after Derek Todd Lee, maybe within 9 months or so. His thing wasn't about killing. His thing was about what he could do with the bodies after he had killed them. So he's reminiscent of Jeffrey Dahmer. But to add to the confusion, there was another serial killer operating in Baton Rouge at the same time, Jeffrey Lee Guillory, who was killing prostitutes in North Baton Rouge. So police had a very difficult time differentiating between, it's hard enough to catch one killer when you have a serial killer, but when you have 3 operating in the same territory, using different weapons and different methods of killing, then it was a very difficult time, because during that period, 60 women in the Baton Rouge area went missing or were murdered. And so it was a very hard time for people who lived here, because it was terrifying. You were afraid to open your door. You were afraid to go to Walmart. It was just a very difficult time. And fortunately, all 3 of these serial killers are now at Angola.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. And these are, wait, I know one of these guys is a black serial killer. You don't see too many of those, right?
Right. Only 16% of serial killers in the United States are African American.
Well, you got to be politically correct. You can't call them black serial killers. You got to say African American. We don't want to offend the serial killer community. If you're a serial killer out there, we just want to apologize for offending.
We don't want to upset any serial killers. You're right.
No, definitely not. We want to reach out to every base, here.
Oh no,
okay.
I definitely don't want to offend any.
Oh yeah, well, I actually met one time. I met Richard Beagenwall back on Staten Island.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I got to go to death row and observe Derek Todd Lee in his cell during the course of my research on that book, and that was pretty interesting. And then when the book came out, Warden Kane called me and said, Derek Todd Lee's fighting mad about that book. And I'm like, oh, great, now I have a serial killer mad at me. And then later I testified in one of Sean Vincent Gillis's hearings, and he's sitting a few feet away from me staring at me as his defense attorney's reading aloud from my book about how sick I think he is. And I'm like, oh, no, now I have 2 serial killers that don't like me. That's not good.
Yeah, even if one, yeah. We got a question about Derek Todd Lee. Okay. Susan, do you think there is a link between Derek Todd Lee and the Atlanta child murderers? Maybe Derek is one of the grown-up child prostitutes in that area.
No, I don't think so, and here's why. Derek Todd Lee was captured in Atlanta when Danny Mixon went outside of the task force that was formed because nobody would believe him that Derek Todd Lee was the killer. And he got a subpoena ducis tecum to swab Derek Todd Lee for DNA. Soon after that, Derek Todd Lee took off and went to Atlanta, which is where he was later apprehended. But he was in Louisiana for his whole life. He worked in this area. He grew up right outside of St. Francisville in an area known as Lee's Quarters, and he didn't leave this area much throughout his life.
Gotcha. So he was never a kid in Atlanta then, right?
Right.
Okay. Got another question for you. Does Susan think there is a satanic group operating in Baton Rouge with the Unsolved Murderer timeline she did for the Ghosts of Baton Rouge documentary? Does she know what a satanic crime would look like?
I do know a little bit about what a satanic crime would look like. There's a lot of ritual involved, and they leave a lot of signature art at these crime scenes. I don't know. Years ago, Sean Gillis was very interested in that, by the way. And he would, when he was a young teenager, he was following up on Satanism and would go to these areas where he thought Satanists might be or Satan activity might be. But I don't know of any prominent satanic cults in Baton Rouge at this time.
Really? Because I know that there's a lot of like witchcraft and voodoo and stuff like that down in New Orleans.
Oh yeah. But you don't hear a lot of. Okay, maybe I should rephrase that to satanic murders here. You don't hear anything about any murders here at this current time that have ritual to them.
Because the Process Church was incorporated in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
By the same lawyer, by the way, who incorporated the Catholic Orthodox church group that all these guys from the JFK assassination were involved in.
Really?
David Ferry, Guy Bannister, they were all bishops in this bizarre Catholic church that was created by the same lawyer that founded incorporated the Process Church.
Wow. Well, the interesting thing is that, Earl Van Best Jr. was friends with Anton LaVey, the founder of the Church of Satan. So he had, I don't think that he was a Satanist, but I think that he liked to debate philosophies.
Whoa, wait a second. Wait a second, man. You're trying to tell me that Gary's father
Absolutely.
was friends with Anton LaVey?
Yes.
And we're just bringing that up now.
As a matter of fact, in the Zodiac ciphers, in that secret message, man is the most dangerous animal of all. In the 9 satanic principles, it says man is the most vicious animal of all. So that statement in the Zodiac letters was simply a variation of Anton LaVey's 9 satanic statements.
Well, Gary, tell us about this. What do you know about your father being friends with Anton LaVey?
Well, yeah. That's just another one of those things. Again, I said it earlier. People say, I don't think I would have written a book if I'd have found out my father was a Zodiac killer. But there's so many things in this book. I just could not tell the story. My father's best friend in high school shared with me most of the memories and most of the stories that I have laid out in the book. And in particular, one of the first things he told me was, your father was an incredible organ player. He said he played at Grace Cathedral, but he never invited me to one of those recitals. But he played at all the other organ all the places that had the Wurlitzers around town, like the Avenue Theater. And he said, there weren't many organists around in the time. And Anton LaVey was one of them. And they were at San Francisco City College at the same time, and that's where they met. San Francisco City College, playing at the old, the Lost Tavern, or Lost Weekend Tavern, just in the southern part of the Sunset District where Van liked to hang out. And in fact, Susan and I visited that old. When Anton LaVey got started, he started on Friday nights at that lounge, the Lost Weekend Tavern, and it had a 10-ton Wurlitzer built into the bar. And he would sit there and he would conduct his service, this magic circle, he called it back then. And my father played organ there at the Lost Tavern with him.
So that's
Were
how
there
they. Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead, no, Mike.
I
I'm
mean,
stunned.
were there after parties, like, after like Eyes Wide Shut type parties in these places?
I don't know. I don't have a clue. I think
In other
my
words,
father.
there was the bar was open, and then once it closed, then there was the after party, so to speak, and
Yeah,
the after rituals kind of thing.
yeah. I don't know. I know that those were the early days of LaVey's development into the high priest of the Church of Satan. So this was when he was first getting his start. And the interesting thing for me is because I'm a musician, I love to play music. That all these guys, all these things they're all centered around music. Charlie Manson wanted a recording contract. That's all he ever wanted. Anton LaVey was a carnival organist, and I don't think a very good one. He wanted to be a musician. He wasn't. My father was a musical prodigy, but I don't think he saw a means to
Make
make
money,
it
yeah.
in that business. And it's
Right.
just amazing to me how all these guys from all that same generation, it all revolved around music. And I think they were there for the love of music to begin with.
What about? Did you? We might as well ask, right? Was there any connection to Michael Aquino?
Yeah.
Uh, Actually,
Okay, let's do it.
okay, so you in the book, I there was a point in my search when I just had this realization, this light bulb moment that I just described to you about the musical connection. So I said, okay, I'm going to write Charles Manson a letter and ask him if he knew my father. And then I started looking at how to do that, and I had some people online respond say, man, you don't want to send Charlie Manson a letter. He's really crazy. You probably better off staying. You won't get the truth anyway. You don't know whether you can trust the answer anyway. So I started thinking, well, there's this other guy, Bobby Beausoleil. He was a guitarist. Let me see if I can track him down. Well, I tracked him down. As it turns out, he's at Oregon State Penitentiary where he's serving his life sentence. He had a website. He married while in prison, and his wife Barbara set up a website, and he could actually the prison would actually let him respond to email. So I emailed him.
Oh, how
And
nice.
I said, dear Bobby, my name is Gary Stewart. I had been told that my father was a musician in the Haight-Ashbury. Just wondering if you guys ever ran across. His name was Earl Van Best Jr. And he emailed me back. It took about a month before they let him, respond to emails or whatever. He said, Gary, thanks for writing. Man, I can't really tell you where he came from or where he ever ended up. But Van was a mean Hammond organ player, and he did jam with my group, the orchestra, from time to time in the old warehouse when we practiced. So it just makes me wonder, did he drop in on the Russian embassy with Kenneth Anger and Michael Aquino and all these guys? I know for a fact Anton LaVey used to be a guest at the Russian embassy, hang out all the time.
Really?
And so did Candace Bergen and Terry Metzler. It was all back to the music connection.
Well, that's fascinating, man. That hasn't come out in any other interview you've done, has it?
There's so many questions that don't get asked.
Yeah, I wonder why.
and I've forgotten more than I actually remember. So
yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's one of the things about this book, Ed, is that it takes you through a time in San Francisco history where the world was changing and there was so much going on with the Vietnam War and the protests and the hippies and the Manson family and all of the Harvey Milk and all of that. I mean, this whole story
Well,
revolves
and the People's Temple cult.
exactly,
Yeah, by the
exactly.
way, which had a lot more power in that area than people realize.
Oh yeah, and we go into that in the book actually.
Oh, really? What do you? Okay. Oh my goodness. We would have to have you guys back. Wait a second. You know,
Ed,
we had a great show when
yeah.
Gary was in a Foot Locker, but now you know.
Now, look, here's the other thing. So the connection to Jim Jones, and I just haven't had time yet, or I don't know if I've got the energy right now, but so my grandfather was, I told you, a missionary for the Methodist Conference to Japan. His wife, while he was
Wait, it wasn't that group
pastoring
group World Vision, was it?
No. While his father was, while my grandfather was pastoring his parishioners, his wife, my grandmother, was entertaining the deacons, shall we say. She was very promiscuous. He thought going to Japan would end it. It didn't end it. He told his wife, he said, I will never divorce you because I don't want my son to ever think I did this, but I am telling you, you're going to divorce me. I am not going to tolerate this unholy adultery anymore. When that happened, he knew. They brought him before the Methodist Conference, and everybody was understanding, but there was this one old guy who said, no, we're going to excommunicate him. So my grandfather switched over to the Disciples of Christ.
Right.
And my grandfather was a senior member in the organization of the Disciples of Christ. Guess what? Based out of Indianapolis, where Jim Jones got christened to start the People's Temple as a Disciples of Christ offshoot by a senior member. And I'm just wondering, could that be my grandfather? I need to go to Indianapolis, check the records, but I don't know.
Wow, that's incredible because, you know, in Indiana, that's where Jones, there was a youth cop over there that got a hold of Jones and mentored him. And he had all kinds of CIA connections and stuff like that. And then Jones hooked up with him again down in South America.
Yep.
Yeah, right. We had a great show on that, man, with David Kahn. Oh, my God. Okay.
Hey, Ed.
Yeah.
Do you guys feel that a lot of these religious groups are actually like CIA fronts because there's so many government connections to them that it almost seems like, are they the ones starting these, you know?
Well, when you see this guy just recently who was busted in North Korea, and the four guys who are hiking in Iran, you know, it's always like they use the missionaries as a front, you know, and Mark David Chapman and both the other guy that shot at Reagan were both involved with that World Vision group, and they were down there at Jonestown as well.
John Hinckley Jr.
John Hinckley Jr. Yeah, they were all involved with that World Vision group. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's fascinating. Okay. What else?
So you probably, I don't know if you got to this part in the book, but speaking of attempted assassinations on presidents, about the same time that my father was asking the Russians to take him on board, he also called in a death threat against Gerald Ford to the FBI office in San Francisco. He said he had knowledge of a foreign national, a Yugoslavian man, described himself physically. My father described my father, who was going to. Here's a Yugoslavian national who's going to on March 16th, he's going to attempt to assassinate President Ford at not the Fairmont Hotel or whatever. And I think this is right. Susan, was this before or after two people did try to shoot?
Right after.
Did try to.
Squeaky Fromm was one of them.
Another Manson connection, Squeaky Fromm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and
then the other lady who actually she's on YouTube today. She said, "Yeah, well, I'm sorry I missed." You know.
Oh, you Squeaky Fromm?
No, the other lady who's I think she's out of prison now for attempted assassination on Ford, but she's got videos on YouTube saying, "Yeah, I'm sorry I missed" or whatever. But
get her on the show.
Again, did the same thing. Right before, right after. So.
Okay, now wait a minute. Now your dad called in a death threat to the Secret Service. Now, how do you know that from the FBI?
FBI report. Yeah.
That's in the book.
Yes.
Yes.
And that hasn't been mentioned. Have you mentioned that on any other show before?
No.
Yeah, why not? What's going on,
dude? Because every other show thinks they can do this interview in 10 minutes.
Okay.
Well, did he do that? Did he do that because he wanted to be deported and he figured to get a free ride, a free ticket out?
It was anonymous, right?
No, he gave him his name.
Oh,
no, actually, yeah, they caught him, and the San Francisco Police Department picked him up and said he was drunk.
Okay. Okay. Well, I've done that. You know, we've all done that one, right, Mike?
Not me.
Not yet? No? Okay, I have another drink.
Not yet, no.
Oh, my God, this is great stuff. Okay, well, what else? Listen, we're opening up a lot of big doors here. Okay, what else, man?
If I hadn't lived it, Ed, I wouldn't believe it myself.
Yeah. Okay. So now let's explore this area more. What are the connections to the Manson family besides Bobby Bouzoulet?
That was it, as far as we know.
That was it. Okay. But Bobby definitely says he knows him.
Yes.
And I still correspond with Bobby. I get emails from him all the time. I had asked, I can't send him a copy of the book. He knows that the book, I guess he knows it's out now, but the only way inmates at Oregon State Penitentiary can receive books, they have to come straight from the publisher.
Yeah.
And I asked HarperCollins to send him a copy, and I'm not sure if they did.
Well, you can send him an Amazon gift, and Amazon will ship it to him directly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely, yeah. Okay.
All right.
I've run across this stuff before. Okay. All right. Well, this is incredible, man. My mind is blown. I'm gonna read some commercials, okay, just to take to kind of move my mind away from some of this stuff here. So, guys, think of some more stuff along these lines here, connections to this kind of stuff. Other connections to Aquino or Manson family or Process Church. You got anything like that?
Anything on Peter Levenda?
No.
What about the Process Church? Any connections to there?
I've done a lot of digging. It all goes. Yeah. So we'll talk about it after you do your commercials.
Yeah, let me read some commercials. Yeah, we'll get back. Okay, think about it. Yeah. Okay, man. Well, the show has taken a whole new turn. We're hearing information we have never. I listen to everything on YouTube about this show. We're with Gary L. Stewart and Susan D. Mustafa. They're the author of the books The Most Dangerous Animal of All, Searching for My Father and Finding the Zodiac Killer. Now, she's also written I've Been Watching You, The South Louisiana Serial Killer, Bloodbath, and Dismembered. Okay, we should ask her about those books. But Pacific West Bamboo, 503-839-8126. Her email is demroots@oppermail.com. Now, you guys got to understand, Amanda over at Pacific West Bamboo is a huge supporter of this show, okay? And you're getting good information here tonight. Now, the thing is, too, is she can help you out. Any kind of construction project you have going on where you need timber, you need, wood, Bamboo's a great product for this kind of stuff, and she's a great supplier. She's like an importer of bamboo. She grows bamboo. This woman is a bamboo expert, man. And beer bamboo and bicycle bamboo. This woman, if you have any kind of construction project you have going on, you need a stage built. There's a big project she has going on. Contact Amanda. This woman is a bamboo. Forget it. You can't beat her. Okay. You can also support the Opperman Report with a PayPal donation. OppermanReport@gmail.com, or by buying my book, How to Succeed as a Private Investigator. You can get on emailrevealer.com at the bookstore. We got good old Mike Gray. He's on the show right now. He's helping us out. InfinityHomePlans.com. Check out InfinityHomePlans.com. They're your resource for 3D and 2D draftsman services. They offer a multitude of products, including stock home plans, 2D digital drawing sets, 3D models, renderings, and more. Emailrevealer.com. If you need to locate someone's current place of employment, you want to help us, you need to find to collect on child support, okay? You can do a quick search on there. We can help you collect on your child support, your back child support. We also do asset searches, locates, all kinds of stuff. So check out emailrevealer.com. If you want to advertise here, it's OppermanReport@gmail.com. We can read your ads here. New World Mexican Women. These beautiful women down in Mexico with their book called New World Mexican Women. They teach you how to make authentic Mexican jewelry. And they also have these beautiful love letters to their husbands and their men here in America that they want them to come back to Mexico. And it's a beautiful book. It's a coffee table book. It's very colorful, and it's a great conversation piece. It's available on Lulu.com, or you can download a free digital edition, okay? And these women, they're activists. They're social activists down there in Mexico, where the heat's really on them down there, and they're big supporters of the show. We need to support them. Now, essential oils. Okay, everybody needs essential oils. We all know that. Essentially Tammy on Facebook. She's Young Living Essential Oils Independent Distributor. It's 100% therapeutic grade oils. They help support the body's natural functions. You can click on her website, post it on Essentially Tammy, T-A-M-I, on Facebook. All kinds of different oils. You can email her at jocatami, Jocatami, @yahoo.com. Her phone number is 352-239-8546. That's 352-239-8546. Okay, we're here tonight. Oh, we're going to take a break, right, CJ? What's going on with that? WCJV in Youngstown, New York, right by Niagara Falls. Niagara Falls!
Slowly I turn.
Inch by inch. Okay, so we're going to take a little break, a little musical break here, so we can all...
You are listening to WCJV Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, New York.
Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report After Show. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. The show is brought to you by Audible.com. Go to audibletrial.com/Opperman Report, and you get a free audiobook. It's free. You sign up for free. You get a free audiobook. You can order audiobooks, I think, all month long for free. We're here tonight with Gary L. Stewart and Susan D. Mustafa. They're the author of the book, The Most Dangerous Animal of All, Searching for My Father and Finding the Zodiac Killer. Susan also wrote some other books called Dismembered, and I've been watching you, the South Louisiana Serial Killer. Fascinating books, and you can find the link to these books on my blog, the Opperman Report blog. Hey, by the way, I keep forgetting to say, I was supposed to say this earlier tonight, we're looking for somebody who's an audio engineer who wants to help produce the show here for us on Friday nights. As you can see, we kind of go on forever. But we need someone who knows how to work SAM that I can just dial into them. They can run SAM for us. And if we can do that, we can get on like 10 stations on Friday Night Live. It would really be a big advancement to the show. But we're here with our guests tonight, Gary L. Stewart and Susan D. Mustafa. We have Mike Gray from InfinityHomePlans.com is hanging out with us here. Now, Mike, right during the break, you were asking a question, and it was a really interesting question. And then Gary was giving a really good answer. Can we recreate that now for the air?
Yeah, and I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry,
That's
guys.
okay, man. We have our own
Okay.
little show during the commercials.
Right.
Okay.
Hey, Gary.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just wondering, what is your relationship now with your mom, the one that gave you up for adoption?
So, whenever I suspected that my mother may have uh, contacted Harold Butler about the fact that Lieutenant Hennessy had swabbed me, that's when I went underground with the rest of my research and my writing. I knew she did not want this to go on. Um, I knew she did not want this to be true, or I knew maybe she knew more than she was actually sharing with me, because as you can see in the book, my mother, the first time I spoke to my mother on the phone, Mother's Day 2002, I told her, I will agree to a relationship with you if you will be completely honest with me. Never lie to me. Always be truthful, no matter how painful it is for me or you. She agreed, and the first second day I ever had with her, um, she lost my trust. So, but anyway, so I said I want to keep my relationship with my mother, so I'm going to write my book. I'm going to do my research, and so I didn't talk about my father anymore. I didn't talk about him anymore, and but I continued to write. So it was real awkward. My wife and I had a business trip to go to in Phoenix in March, just after right around the anniversary, the 51st anniversary of my abandonment in Baton Rouge, and my mother was living in Arizona at the time at Lake Havasu, and so we decided that we would drive from Phoenix through Sedona to the Grand Canyon, a night at the Grand Canyon, back on the road, and meet mom somewhere. And it was in Kingman or something like that, Arizona, off Route 66. And we had a beautiful, beautiful lunch with my mother in March. And I debated that whole drive over there from the Grand Canyon to the restaurant, whether I should tell my mother, and my wife told me, no, this is probably not the best time. Maybe you just need to wait till the day before the book comes out. Well, as it turns out, People Magazine wanted the first serial exclusive on my story so they could break the news to the world. And oh, that's cool, right? Well, they want to come down and interview you. And by the way, they want to interview your mom. It's like, boy, this is not going to go over well. So they asked me, can you get us an interview with your mother? So I tried. I said, okay, Mom, here's the deal. Susan called you 2 years ago to interview you. Well, the book's finally coming out. She says, oh, great, honey. Finally, your dreams have come true. You're able to share your story. I said, yes. And I want you to share an interview with me. Come to Baton Rouge, sit on a park bench across the street from the apartment where I was abandoned, and let them take some pictures. And let's you and Leona, my adoptive mom, and I, let me sit between the two of you on a park bench, and you don't have to agree with my story. You don't have to agree if you don't believe that I'm right. Or if you do believe I'm right, you don't have to even say that. Um, just I just want you there for support, because Leona wants to be there. She wants to share the story, because not only does she believe I'm right, she raised me, and she's seen what the past 12 years have done to me and our relationship, and she's always been supportive. So it'd be really cool to have my two moms there for the People Magazine. She said, well, honey, I can't sit down and talk with People Magazine unless I know what book I'm talking about. So I sent her a copy of the book. She read it in a day, and she responded the next day with a text message, and I knew it wasn't good. She said, stunning on many levels. And I really didn't know how to respond to that. So I said, I'll give her a couple of days and, let her digest it. Let's see what happens, because we've still got a week before the People magazine people are going to show up. And by the way, People magazine might not do the article if Judy is not there with me. So I finally emailed her. I said, Mom, I'd like your honest opinion. And so where do you stand on the People interview? She said, well, honey, I'm just shocked that you would reveal such personal information, which I guess, it's a memoir. It's my life story. I mean, I'm not trying to make anyone look any different than what the reality we were dealt. I mean, I'm the bastard child in this whole thing anyway. I tried to be as truthful as possible. So she just wasn't very happy, and so Johnny Dodd from People magazine, who, by the way, wrote he gave me a copy of his book that he wrote with the FBI profiler who wrote the BTK book after the arrest. You remember that book, guys?
Which one? Douglas?
Yes, Douglas.
Yeah.
Johnny Dodd came to Baton Rouge, came to my home, gave me a copy of his book, and interviewed me for 7 hours. And he said, I'm not worried about your mother. I'll get her later. So a few weeks later, he called her and he called me back. He said, basically, she says, because you have fabricated dialogue, then I consider it all fiction. Okay. So when we clearly tell in the beginning before the book starts that we are trying to recreate something from 50 years ago or longer with the dialogue. But anyway, so I understand that. So he basically, Johnny Dodd, put in that article under the caption of the photo of me and my mother, says, Jude Guilford says that her son's work is fiction. So that kind of stung for a little bit, but you know what? I'm okay with that. It's not about her. It's not about anything but sharing the truth. And let me tell you one thing, guys. I sleep really well at night. And the last thing that this guy would ever do is indict somebody if I didn't believe, his own father, if I didn't believe and know in my own heart that I am dead on here. I didn't mean to hurt anybody with this story. I didn't mean to break any family ties, but I felt I was born to tell the story, to share the story. It's not over yet. So I didn't choose to be upset with my mother and not talk to her. We spoke, we talked. We were still Facebook friends at the time. Well, as time went along, she saw all the publicity on Facebook and the radio interviews, the television shows, the CNN Live, this, that, and the other, more magazines. We got 5 more magazine articles that came out. And she's just like, she's hating this because I don't know why, because at first I thought because it indicates that she wasn't quite truthful. You called me a liar in the book or whatever. So she actually emailed my publicist at HarperCollins at one point and asked them, why are they publishing this? Because the dialogue's all made up. It can't be true. And the legal department responded to her and said, Ms. Guilford, we have, all of our attorneys have checked into everything Gary said, and we stick by the claims of our author. That really ticked her off. She then blocked me on Facebook. And when my publicist sent me the email my mother had sent, threatening basically to sue HarperCollins over the story, I emailed her that night, and it went something like this. I said, Mom, really? You're going to sue HarperCollins? and you know this is all true. There's not one lie in my story. I said, I am done. There have been several times during the course of our relationship where my mother told me she regretted having found me, because she said, because she couldn't give me all the answers I wanted, nor the father that I deserved. But the fact is, she always knew more than she shared with me. So we have not spoken now. I'm going to say, how long has that been, Susan? 3 months?
Yes, something like that.
Until yesterday.
Oh, really?
Until yesterday. My mother's partner, her boyfriend, her life partner, texted me yesterday morning and says, I thought you ought to know your half brother, Chance Guilford, is intubated in a coma with a blood clot on the brain. And I'm like, oh my God. So I text him. I said, thanks for telling me, Don. By the way, please tell Mom that I love her, and I'm here. If there's anything that I can do, I'll be there right now. I'll be there. So just tell her I love her. And later last night, he texted me again. He said, they're slowly bringing him out of the coma. He's got some feeling in his feet and his hands. And I said, oh, I'm so happy to hear that. And by the way, this whole family estrangement thing now, I just don't see, guys, I've got one son, and there's no way on earth I would ever walk away from my son, lay him on a doorstep and a stairwell and walk away, not take his call when he calls, ever disown, disconnect, cut off. I love that young man more than life itself. I can't understand a parent like my father abandoning me on a stairwell, but a mother who says that she grieved for 39 birthdays on February 12th. Every February 12th, she silently grieved the loss of me, who finally has a chance to reunite with her son. God blessed her with that opportunity, blessed us both with that opportunity, and you can cut him off and just be done with it. Well, my mother has also cut her biological father out of her life. She cut her only sister out of her life, and another little boy that her and Rotea adopted, cut him out of her life. So I'm as disposable as any of them. So I get it. So I told Don last night, I said, Don, it breaks my heart every day. I want my mother. I need my mother in my life. I just don't see it. That just doesn't run in the Stewart family tradition, to be estranged from family and be okay with that. Well, he texted, he said, it doesn't run in her blood either. I said, Don, she's done it before. It's not the first time. So I decided to call him. Let's stop this texting. I called him and we had a conversation. Again, he said, Gary, I don't know how to tell you this, and I don't know how to make you believe this. Your mother loves you dearly. She talks about you every day. But you and her are so much alike. And this written word now has filed a wedge, and she just doesn't know what to do. I said, well, here's what you do. You tell her I love her, and whenever she's ready, we'll try again. About 30 minutes later, she texted me and she says, hi, honey. Thank you for reaching out. Thanks for the prayers and the thoughts. Talk soon. So first time I've spoken to my mother, not spoken, but text in 3 months. And it's unfortunate, but it's kind of been that way over the past 12 years. And I believe had I not told Dawn to tell her I love her and I really would like a relationship, that she would not have. I mean, if I were my mother, thinking I'm on the verge of losing my second born, and then Gary is all I'm going to ever have left forever and ever for the rest of my life, and I have screwed up that relationship with him. I would be thinking, I'm going to be texting Gary and saying, honey, your brother is sick. Can you come to California? But she didn't. She had Don texted me. She didn't tell Don to text me. Don just texted me. So that is the situation with the relationship with my mother.
Oh boy. Well, I'll tell you this, brother. I know. Listen, now listen. This is real life, man. This is real stuff.
It is.
And I can share with you that my mom again too. Got quote unquote married. At 14 to a man. I don't know how old he was, but way older. Probably even older than your father was. And that does cause trauma in their life and harm. Hurt. And my mother today is in a nursing home type situation. She broke her hip, she's dementia, and yeah, I know. And she's reacting out too in ways like she refuses to eat. She refuses to let people help her change her clothes and stuff like that. And we believe it's due to the trauma of, let's face it, 14 years old. My daughter is 14 years old, so, my mother, when 14 years old was married to a neighbor, a grown man,
What do you know at 14,
Right, Anyway,
exactly.
Yeah, right.
And I believe because so much of those formative years with my father that were she told HarperCollins, she told Susan, she told People Magazine, my life with Earl Van Best Jr. was the darkest days of my life.
You can imagine.
She had to go to a correctional home for a while after that.
Yeah.
Her life was ruined because of her relationship. She never got the chance to grow up. Right? Her life was trauma from the day she was born.
Yeah.
Do you think she had clues of what he was up to?
I don't know.
But if she's trying to stifle the investigation, there's a reason for that.
Well, I think the reason is that Rotea Guilford, the years that she spent with Rotea were the best years of her life. That's just my opinion. She lived in the police society in San Francisco. Right. She was well respected. Rotea became deputy mayor under Dianne Feinstein. Those were her golden years. And if it turns out that her first husband was a Zodiac, well, that tarnishes all of that. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. Now, what about, now we're bringing up Feinstein, okay? Now, what about, and Harvey Milk and all this, now, what about connection to any of that stuff, okay?
Well, Rotea was Feinstein's deputy mayor, and he was around through that era. Gary, what was the connection there?
Yeah.
My mother was and Frank, my mother's partner at the time after Rotea, and whom I met the first time I met my mother, Frank Velasquez. They were Dianne Feinstein's campaign managers. My first trip to San Francisco, Mom took me to a gated community, and I didn't know my way around. It was at night, right? First time I'd ever been to the city. And we pull up to this gated community, this beautiful mansion. She says, honey, that's Nancy's house. Nancy who? Nancy Pelosi. They got each other on speed dial. She was Miss San Francisco socialite.
Your mother?
Yes. She was in every Sunday paper. Rotea he was on the Parks and Recreation Commission. Willie Brown was his best friend. Willie Brown was there when he died. Willie Brown, he called, when Earl Sanders became the first ever African-American chief of the San Francisco Police Department, that was an accomplishment.
Yeah.
Willie Brown became the first ever, I think, African-American on the California Assembly. And I think for sure the first mayor of San Francisco.
And Willie Brown was up to his neck in Jim Jones' People's Temple stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. So so Rotea would call Willie every morning, and it was a ritual. It was like reading a newspaper. He would call him up and say, "Good morning, Mr. Mayor. How are you today?" And just honoring him for their not only their friendship, but his success at becoming mayor. Rotea was in the building when Dan White shot Harvey Milk and George Moscone. My mother says that Rotea is the one that tackled Dan White and put the cuffs on him.
Okay, your mother's on speed dial with Nancy Pelosi today?
Yeah, her, Nancy, and Diana are all.
Well, wait a second. So this woman who was for some reason was the victim of this statutory rape, was thrown in juvenile hall and all this stuff, somehow now comes out of this and she's best friends with Nancy Pelosi.
Any comments on Nancy Pelosi?
Yeah, what do you got on? Yeah. She's a serial killer.
Does anyone else think Nancy Pelosi is nuts?
Well, yeah, listen, man. When you get that rich, you get nuts, man. There's no stopping that. Brother, oh my God. Okay, how did we get to 8:30 at night and we're just bringing up Nancy Pelosi now? Gary?
And there's so many stories in the story. We were going back to the one about the Michael Aquino and all this stuff. My when I found my father's best friend or only friend in high school, by the way. Oh, that's another one. So
go ahead.
There's a picture in the book of my father in his ROTC class with his best friend William Lomas, who I did meet and became a very, very, very dear friend of mine, who shared with me so many memories. Also in their company C of the ROTC at Lowell High School was a young aspiring actor named Bill Bixby.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Any connections to OJ? No.
He's like, run, Forrest, run.
Yeah, no. You think I'm kidding, but there's a lot of stuff with all these guys with the OJ trial, and OJ grew up in San Francisco. Go ahead. What do you got with OJ?
Yeah, Shapiro, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, was that? No, Kim, whatever, whoever she was.
Kim
married
Kardashian,
to. Yeah. So anyway, Bill Bixby was in the group. So, but I don't think they were very good friends. But anyway, my William Lomas told me one time. He said, Gary, if things had turned out differently, I guess being your father's only friend, I would probably be like an uncle to you. So I started calling him Uncle Bill. Until the day he died. And one of the craziest stories I ever heard.
Wait, Bill Bixby?
No. Bill Lomas.
Okay,
there
sorry.
was Bill Lomas, Bill Bixby, and Van Best.
Okay.
So he tells me one time, he said, if you want to hear your father stories from high school, I've got plenty stories, lots of memories. And he told me, he said, there's one time I went to your father's house and went into his dark room. His mother and stepfather really didn't like him a lot, and they didn't let him come out very much. He stayed in his room, listened to music. And I went into his room, and he was sitting on his bed, and he had this big gash on his head, and he had this old antique mace that he had gotten as a gift from the Earl of Sandwich when he went over for Queen Elizabeth II's coronation for his high school graduation trip. He's sitting on his bed with the blood coming out of his bump on his head, and the mace is laying there. And he says, Van, what happened? He said, a medieval spirit is trying to kill me, and it took that mace and hit me in the head with it. and this is not the first time it happened. So he handed the mace to Bill Lomas, and Uncle Bill said, I took that mace and it smelled of old blood.
Oh my God.
And so I handed it back to him. He tried to give it to me. I said, man, I don't want that. And so he said, I think he eventually got rid of it at one of his dealers south of Market Street. But he got that mace from Montague, the Earl of Sandwich restaurant stores. They got one there in downtown Disney, I believe. Anyway, this guy lived in the Hinchingbrook house for years, and it's got a history itself. It's told in the book. But this Hinchingbrook, this John Montague family was obsessed with the Hellfire Club and the Knights Templars. My father spent an entire summer in that old, cold, creaky, leaky castle. And he came back a couple of weeks before he was scheduled to come back. And when he did, William, Uncle Bill, says, Van, why are you back so soon? You weren't supposed to be back until September or whatever. He said, man, I had to get out of there. Montague made a pass at me. Now my father's 19 years old at this time. And this guy was, what do you call it? He's a parliament member. And my father accused him of making a sexual advance at him.
Wait, how do you know that? You have that in letters or something?
No, he told his best friend, who told me.
Okay, the best friend. Okay.
Yeah, he said, Gary, I don't know whether to believe Van or not. Don't know whether it's true. Well, I decided to write that guy, and not to ask him if he made a pass at my father, but to, as it turns out, he was deceased, and his son was now the 11th Earl of Sandwich. And his son said, I'm younger than your father. I wouldn't have recalled him coming to visit my father anyway. So, but I believe that's where he got a lot of his fascination as an 18-year-old with the dark side, hearing those stories of the Knights Templars and the Hellfire Club. And their, one of the strong beliefs in the Hellfire Club is that, nobody wants a bastard child. My father mentioned in his police reports that he only wanted Judy to have the dignity of having their child in wedlock, which is why he left the state to try to find a place to get married. So he was all about that Hellfire Club thing. But anyway, that's another connection. He was at the Queen's coronation. Another one of those things how can you not write this story?
Yeah.
And one of the things that impressed me about when I was reading Gary's manuscript was how thorough he was on research, because research is my job. And Gary even wrote a letter to the Queen of England asking her if she knew Van and recalled that incident. And the Queen's, I guess, lady in waiting wrote him back and said politely no, that the Queen did not remember. But she returned the $5 Gary had included in his letter for postage. And I'm like, Gary, this woman owns a whole country. You could have sent her $5 for postage. It was awesome.
I wasn't leaving anything to chance. I mean, I had to look up, how do you write a letter? How do you address the Queen? And I sent her, because Uncle Bill, my father's only friend in high school, told me, Gary, your father's father, your grandfather, did the family tree before that was even popular. He did it for Van. He did it for his son back in the 50s. And he proved that your family's related to Queen Elizabeth's family. So he was all excited when, being a member of the English speaking union in San Francisco, the Earl of Sandwich came to speak and invited my father to the Queen's coronation. And so I'm saying, well, if he went and he told his friend Bill, he said that he met the Queen. So I wanted to write the Queen. So, hey man, I'm writing a story about doing research on my father. Here's a picture of him. And I'm just curious, do you ever recall meeting Earl Van Best Jr.? He says he knew you. And the lady anyway did write back. She didn't say she didn't remember. What she said is the Queen takes these matters seriously and wishes you the best of success in all your endeavors. And she sent the $5 back. I was going to make sure that I didn't leave her any reason not to respond. I knew she could afford postage, but you know.
Well, did you get you learned that from Joe Culligan?
What's that?
Did you get the Joe Culligan book? Because that's what he. By the way, sending letters like that works. By the way, first, you send those letters out. But Joe Culligan wrote the book How to Get Anything on Anybody or How to Find Out Anything About Anybody. He was a PI, and he always says send a check for more than the cost says, because then they have to send you a refund. You know. So and it's in his book. It's a great book, by the way. Unfortunately, he's dead. I took a class from him once.
Wait, what? What's that? Send a check for more than the cost? What do you mean?
Yeah, like when you're trying to order some kind of records or something like that, you contact an agency or something like a government agency. You send, well, here's a check for $20 to cover the cost. So they'll send you a refund check. Okay. So
right.
and it kind of gets their attention more because you send a check with it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it's a great book, Joe Culligan, and I took a class from him. He's a great. He passed away, but Joe Culligan actually, he's the guy who remember the case with the guy who took the bat and he hit the ice skater.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah. He's
Nancy Kerrigan, right?
Right.
Yes.
Galooly.
Okay. Right, the guy, right. So he tells us, yeah, I'm the one who found his resume. So I asked him in the class, I raised my hand, you know. I said, how'd you get the resume? He goes, I called up his mother and I asked for it. She was very nice and sent it to him. He was a great guy. I love that guy, man. But you know, God bless him, he passed on. But get the book, guys. You'll learn something from that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Gary, you got so much stuff. We got a couple of questions in the chat room.
Hey, can I ask a question before?
No more for you. No. Go ahead, man. Go ahead, man.
Well, this is on YouTube, okay? So I didn't make this up.
Okay.
But if you go on YouTube and you can look up Jim Carrey is I'm not kidding about this either. Jim Carrey is the satanic high priest in L.A., okay? Right. Do you know who they say took his place? Or who was before him? No. Martin Scorsese.
Oh, yeah, right, okay.
And now Jim Carrey is in L.A. And then you know who's under Jim Carrey? Robert Shapiro.
Robert Shapiro, okay, right.
Wow.
This is what it says, okay? You know who the satanic high priest in San Francisco is?
Who?
Nancy Pelosi.
Oh, right.
I knew that's where that was going.
See, we just solved this thing.
Yeah, there you go. Man.
Yeah.
Well, Shapiro's an interesting guy, you know, with a lot of connections to a lot of big cases. You know, just about everything, man. At the Christian Brando thing, and it seems to pop up everywhere, man. Michael Jackson.
Yep.
What does your dad have any connections to Michael Jackson?
I didn't look that far.
It is a small world, man.
Gary,
Maybe
what
we'll
do you
check
think
into
set
that.
your dad off, though? I mean, what was the anger in your father that set him off? Do you know?
Yeah, I truly believe. You see, his relatives, the people I know now out in the Carolinas, and there are only two left that are surviving today, and they're in their 80s because they would be the same age as my father. They're his first cousins, so his father and their mother or brothers would my grandfather's siblings' children. So I've met them, I've visited with them, I spent time with them, I love them. one in particular shared with me that one of Van's last trips to Myrtle Beach. So here's the custody situation, the custody arrangement. Gertrude, my grandmother, has full custody of my father. My grandfather gets him for a little time in the summer, and when they do, they go to Myrtle Beach, which is where the family's from. Basically, the family has a beach house right near. In fact, it's gone now, but it would be in the parking lot next to the Ferris with the roller coaster at the Grand Strand on Myrtle Beach, if you're familiar with that now. That's where they spent their summers in the 40s. And the last times my father's cousins saw him, he was like 14 years old. And they didn't see him much after that. But they remember him saying that he got so tired of hearing the turnstiles of men courting his mother as the sounds of the bed rails, the headboards banging against the wall from his mother's room just made him angry. Well, how's San Francisco? I hate it. He was really angry at his mother. And then I think his mother, when she remarried this guy, they really slighted him. They put him in his room and didn't let him get out. I mean, he was not to participate in any family function. So that's how he grew up. That's how he was raised, to have such disrespect for women, because his mother allowed it, right? And his mother wasn't good enough, so his father left too. So he was angry at his father. He loved his dad. Had his mother and dad stayed together, this would have never happened. He is a product. I don't believe he was born a killer. I believe my story, the most dangerous animal of all, is just as much a case study on nature versus nurture as it is a true crime book memoir. Because my father, I don't believe he was born a killer. I believe he was raised, he was nurtured a killer. And the anger over the loss of that first wife, and then he finally had the one perfect one, Judy. And she got away. In fact, she ran away. And then myself, every radio interview has always had, well, how does it feel to look in the mirror every day knowing you have serial killer DNA blood running through you? It's like, I am who I am because of the way the Stewarts raised me. And my father became who he became because of the way his mother raised him, I believe, and the lack of respect that he had for women in general, the rage against his mother.
Your father wasn't born a psychopath then. He became a sociopath or a psychopath.
He was born extremely intelligent. And like his friend Bill told me, Gary, his IQ was off the charts, but sometimes that causes problems in other areas, is exactly how he put it to me.
It kind of sounds like the Black Dahlia murderer too.
Oh yeah, right. Did your dad have any connection to Steve Hodel?
Man, let me tell you something. And I don't know if I can say that on the radio. Can I, Susan?
No.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
This ain't good.
Well, let me ask you a question here. No, real quick.
Put it this way. I love Steve Hodel's. I loved his Black Dahlia book.
Right.
And I was in the process of writing my story when I finished it. And he made it very easy for a reader to reach out and connect. And I sent him an email. I said, man, great story. I think you've done it. And I said, believe it or not, this is not some kook out of the swamp with a crazy fetish about wanting to prove my father was a serial killer. But I've got the same situation right now going on in Northern California. I need to tell my story. Okay, so here we go. I've told him Northern California, serial killer. How do I tell my story? his advice to me was rewrite, resubmit, rewrite, resubmit. Never give up until you get a publisher, basically. That was in 2005, 2006. Next thing I know, Mr. Hodel himself wrote a new book called Most Evil, in which he then says his father's a Zodiac killer and the lipstick murderer and all these others. And I'm like, did he really do that? Did he really? He knew who I was talking about, and I told him I had huge, overwhelming evidence, but he literally ran the press, and I believe he self-published that because nobody wanted to hear anything about a Zodiac killer. And I can tell you what I do believe. I don't believe unless there's a sequel to close this out completely with the any new developments in the SFPD with regard to my case. I don't believe there will ever be another Zodiac killer book published. The publishers don't want it. Enough already.
Let me ask you this. When you look in the mirror, how does it feel to have serial killer blood running through your veins? Wait, real quick though, man. There is a Michael Jackson connection. Okay, let me get to you. Okay, no, there really is, man. Because there's a picture of Michael Jackson with Liberace and Scott Thornton in a Bentley, a convertible Bentley, driving around Buckingham Palace grounds. Okay, and Scott Thornton was the guy who was from the Canyon there at the Wonderland murders. So it does. There's a connection. Okay. What about, have you guys read the book by Dave McGowan, Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon?
No.
No? Okay. Okay, because he kind of touches on this kind of stuff too, man. You might want to take a look at that book.
Will do.
Yeah. It's right around this kind of stuff, man. He's good. What do you think? Oh, man, I don't even know where to go.
Ed, there was one time absolutely that I literally put it all down. And I said, I'm through. I don't want to look anymore. I don't want to know anymore, because every phone call I make, every time I look into something, I find a connection. So I just got to stop, which is exactly why I never looked at that 340 cipher. Never looked at it until our agent looked at it and said, your father's name's right there completely. I had enough. And then my objective was to share my story, not to find any more, not to try to overextend any connections or make it something it wasn't. The truth, sometimes, eventually, the truth is stranger than fiction. You can't make this stuff up.
Yeah, and it's a small world, and there are a lot more connections to these things than people realize. Because it's all connected.
Yep.
Hey, Gary.
Yes.
A while back, a few years ago, I'm not sure if it was on hard copy or Entertainment Tonight, there was this kid, he was like 17, 18 years old, and he was convinced that his father, who was an ex-cop, was the Zodiac killer. Did you see that on TV?
I did not.
And they even called in, the son even called in on the Howard Stern show, and the father was in the next room in the same house. And did you see that, Ed? Did you hear that?
No, I did not see that one. No.
And yeah, the kid was telling Howard Stern that he believed his father was the Zodiac killer, and he had all this evidence and blah blah blah. And then Howard Stern goes, "I want to talk to your dad. Where is he?" He goes, "He's in the next room." And then they got him on the line, and they're going at it on the phone. And the father's like, "Listen, I'm not the Zodiac."
We should have got that kid to call in.
It was so funny, yeah, right?
No, what about that woman, though? There's another woman who came out. Now, her book came out after yours, where she said that her father was a Zodiac, and she helped him send the letters and stuff like that. And then her father was also JFK?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Her book came out after yours?
No, I don't think she has a book, does she?
Okay.
No,
I think she's making one.
Well, here's the deal. She was a broke real estate agent from Los Angeles. Desperate measures. She said she would produce Paul Stein's glasses, the cab driver's glasses, because she because she actually rode in her father's car with her to commit some of these crimes. And in fact, she said she wrote some of the letters with him and for him. But then she came out and said that her father was also JFK, and she hired an attorney to represent her to get on the steps of the Hall of Justice or somewhere, maybe City Hall in San Francisco. This was in '09, Deborah Perez, and claimed that she was going to produce these glasses and the case was solved. And she was never, ever heard from again. And, and then they got this other guy living in Sacramento who claims he found the hood from the Lake Berryessa murder. Well, he made the hood, and he drugged CBS 13 from the Bay Area out there on and on and on. He even got Aphrodite Jones
really?
to buy into it.
Yep.
Yeah, because I remember I reached out to her too. I said, "Hey, I need to share my story and nobody's listening. Can you help?" She says, "Well, what's it about?" And I said, I've got so much proof." And I was even swabbed by the San Francisco Police Department that my father was a Zodiac killer. She said, "I kind of like this guy in Sacramento, man. He's got a hood and everything." I said, "Okay." So it turns out that the dude with the hood and his handwriting expert admitted to fabricating some stuff or whatever, and the FBI called him out as misleading. So that segment that Aphrodite did with him didn't go so well. In fact, I think she's deleted it from her website. But I did send her I did send her a little email right after that came out that he had lied or it was fake or whatever. And I said, "So how'd that thing work out for you, by the way?" And she didn't respond.
Oh, I could have got your hood. Anyway, listen. Now, we got your DNA, right? We can still get your DNA. Now, is there some way to subpoena the San Francisco police to get a sample of the DNA they have in there, a copy of their DNA records? Why not?
Okay, so here's the real deal. When Hennessy swabbed me, it was right after they established this partial profile anyway. San Francisco Police Department had extremely strong confidence in the quality of that sample. So Hennessy's end-all solution was, "Gare, we're just going to swab you. And if you match those markers, well, then you probably have solved this thing." So once Butler got involved in my case and the evidence went away, or possibly was it analyzed and the 5 markers we have matched, and then it was squashed. For some reason, in the past 10 years since the original swabbing, the San Francisco Police Department's confidence level in that partial profile has gone to nil. They have publicly said that we don't believe that's the Zodiac killer at all. Wonder why? Well, the fact is there is more genetic material from the Zodiac killer still in the case file in the San Francisco Police Department.
Yeah, because he licked the stamps.
He licked the stamps.
They're not sure if it's his DNA or if it may be a postal worker's.
No.
Yeah, well, but here's the thing. The stamp under the stamp. Well, yeah. I guess that could be the case. However, DNA technology has advanced in the past 10 years or 12 years since that show since they first established that partial profile. And this touch DNA stuff now, I believe they have the ability to extract whoever wore those gloves in Paul Stein's cab to get that touch DNA out of those gloves. And I honestly think that that's what's going to happen next.
Wow, it's scary how much, they can get.
Yeah. And listen, we're down to about 4 minutes left. Okay. And you guys want to keep going?
Oh, it's
I'm getting tired.
We've only been at this for 4 hours.
Okay, I know.
Is that all?
Hey, I've got a 30-minute radio show at 11 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, yeah.
But Ed, we'd love to come back anytime.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, Susan, I'm gonna invite you to that group on Facebook. Okay,
Thank you.
we're talking about, and Gary too. Why not? And we'll keep in touch. What do you guys want to leave us with? Plug whatever you want to plug. This event you have coming up, and let's take us out here because I'm exhausted too, man. You have no idea how tiring this is. I work a full day, man, before this, and I could get a call tonight. Go ahead.
Well, one of the things I guess that your readers, your listeners, I'm sorry, I'm used to readers, might enjoy is Gary's website, themostdangerousanimalofall.com, has all kinds of information about this case, backstory, blogs, this and that. And I have a website, susanmustafa.com, that gives information about all of the serial killers that I've written about.
Gary?
Well, I think, I thought when the book hit the shelf that I could, like I end the book saying, so long ago, the Zodiac abandoned me. Maybe now I can abandon him. But it continues to prove the story that won't go away. And like I said, visiting the SFPD last month certainly gives me the confidence that these guys really want to solve and close this case once and for all. And I believe they're going to go about it the right way. And I am cooperating fully. But you haven't heard the last of the story. You probably wonder if not thought to ask about, well, what about the movie? Will there be another Zodiac movie? And that's something we'll save as a surprise for the next time. But Susan and I are right in the middle of that development right now.
Gary,
yes.
Will you be continuing your father's work in the future?
No, I want to grow up and host a radio show when I get
Oh, okay, that's nice.
Gary, can you get Richard Gere to play me in the movie?
Yes.
Thank you very much, guys. You know what, man? I really had fun tonight. You guys are really cool, and God bless you both, man. We had with us tonight here Susan D. Mustafa and Gary L. Stewart. They're the author of The Most Dangerous Animal of All, Searching for My Father and Finding the Zodiac Killer. Susan's also the author of Dismembered, I've Been Watching You, the South Louisiana Serial Killer, and Bloodbath. We're brought to you tonight by Audible.com, audibletrial.com /Opperman Report. What's the name of that blog, the website you have there, Gary?
www.themostdangerousanimalofall.com.
Themostdangerousanimalofall.com. I'll put that link up to my blog. By the way, anytime you guys have an update or something like that, a new website or a new blog, a new book, Susan, just send me an email. We add it to your blog post there for the rest of your life. That's your page. I want to thank Mike Gray. No problem. Want to thank Pacific West Bamboo. I want to thank the New World Mexican Women, emailrevealer.com, infinityhomeplans.com, and essentially Tammy. And all our sponsors and stuff like that. I want to thank CJ Mars for being a saint, Hazy Radio for putting up with us, and all this kind of stuff. Hey, guys, great show. Thank you all. Everybody said they enjoyed it.
Thanks for having us.
No, thank you, guys. Thank you very much. So good night, Cindy. We'll see you next week. Oh, by the way, real quick, we need an engineer. I need an audio engineer that can take over the sound for me, man, because there's no way I'm going to be able to do all that. So we need help over here. Okay, guys? Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night.
You are listening to WCJV Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, New York.